and welcome. My name is Mwangala Chakalashi Santos. We're back again with yet another exciting topic and story of the day. Now, we're all asking the question, how do I end the year strong? And how do I start 2020 on a high note? Joining me in the studios today is Tafazwa Sasa, who is a trainer, a coach, and a consultant, and she's here to share with us on how we can actually end this year strong. Tafazwa, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
It's great to have you.
I'm excited to be here.
And before the interview, we were chatting, and I'm thinking, how do I end this year strong? But before we get to that, who is Tafazwa?
Oh, so I am... Oh, that's a good one. Mm-hmm. So professionally, I'm a high-performance coach, trainer, and consultant, which means that I work with individuals and teams in helping them clarify their goals and achieving those goals. So that's what I do professionally. We have what they would say 8 to 5. Mm-hmm. That's my full-time job. Personally, I am a mom. I am a wife.
Okay, mom of how many?
One.
Okay.
I have a son called Daniel Tatenda, and I am, as they say, I am a wife to one husband. Uh-huh. I'm married to Tatenda Sasa, okay. So I am a mom and a wife, and I do have a lot of interests. I'm involved in several other organizations, including Junior Chamber International.
That's where you're president, right?
Yes. So JCI it's an organization it's a global network that provides development opportunities to empower young people on how do they build their leadership skills by serving and leading in an organization towards giving back to the community. So we run projects in different communities, but our project is purely run by our members, which is what gives us development opportunities. So I am currently serving as the 2019 National President of JCI Zambia. I am also a member of a community called the Global Shapers Community, which is an initiative of the World Economic Forum, which places young people in various countries into hubs. That's young people who are driving dialogue, action, and change within their communities. So I'm a global shaper with the Lusaka hub, and you'll find me doing several other things.
Yeah, I've seen that.
But mm-hmm. I think, in a nutshell, and really what I try to do is I work around helping people to understand that we have the power to change our circumstances, whether that is the state of your health, the state of your finances, the way your career is going, the state of your home. We have the power, when we take responsibility, to take small little steps, and if we take those steps consistently, we can actually create the reality that we want. So whether I am coaching a high-performance young professional on how they can get their next promotion, or I'm working with an entrepreneur to see how they can align their employees to their business, or I'm working with an executive team in an NGO to change their organizational culture, the basis of all my work is helping people understand that we can take small, consistent steps to create the reality we want and to solve the problems we have.
How did you get to that place?
It's been a journey, right? It's been a journey. And if I was to probably go all the way back, I think it just comes from having experiences where I found myself in places that weren't the best of scenarios, and having to take action, and then finding myself in a place where I'm like, oh, this actually happened, right? So earliest example is when I finished my high school in 2006 in Zimbabwe. That is the time when the economy was starting to go down, and both my parents were civil servants, so they couldn't afford to send me to university. So we had that discussion where my parents told me that I needed to go to find a job. And the only place I could think to find a job was a bank had come to my high school to donate. So African Banking Corporation, now called Atlas Mara, they came to my school to do a donation of sportswear. And during one of their speeches, they said they would give some people from my school jobs. That it was almost far-fetched because there were all these students from my school. There were students who lived in the capital city. I didn't even live in the capital city, so I had to take trips to the capital city to go to this organization. But I went there, and I persistently went there until I finally got an internship, and I got an internship in the human resource department because one of their members was going on maternity leave. So that's how I got my first job as an intern with Bank ABC. And though my parents had said it wasn't going to be possible for me to go to university, I was staying with my friend Jane and her parents. And when Jane was applying to school, her mom encouraged me to apply. Even though I didn't have school fees, she told me, just apply. You never know what happens. And when I got accepted into university, my supervisor encouraged me to go and speak to our HR director about it. And the bank didn't have a scholarship program at the time, but he just told me, go and try. And so I went and I spoke to the HR director, Mrs. Kapare, and she said, okay, let me see what we can do as the board. So they fortunately had a board meeting in that space, and the board agreed to give me a scholarship for my first year of university, and that's how I went to university. And throughout my university, I continued to intern with the bank, though by, I think, second year, things had stabilized a bit in Zim, so my parents were now able to take over my fees for the rest of the 4 years. But it's all these things that over the years I've been, I find myself in this place where I'm unemployed, my parents can't send me to university, and I dare to try for a job in a big corporate like Bank ABC, and I get it. I find myself in a place where I can't go to university, I'm encouraged to apply, and I get a scholarship, right? Mm-hmm. And over the years, there have been all these things that have taught me and made me strongly believe that we can take small, consistent steps. It will not be easy, but you can definitely do it.
And there you are.
And here I am, and there have been so many stories in between of just the power of persistence and the willingness to pay the price.
I like that. We're now coming to the end of the year, Tufano. How do we end the year strong? How many days do we have even?
I think now we're down to, today is the 6th? We're down to 25.
25 days. So in the next 25 days, how does one end this year strong?
So now I'm going to sort of go into the context of the work that I do and explain the concept of goal getters finish strong. Okay. So over the years, I started by studying HR. But based on my experience in HR, I decided to narrow down on training because, again, for me, going back to that element of we have the power to do things, there's also a need to build capacity for people to actually pursue the things that they want, right? So I decided that I wanted to do training because I wanted to equip people with the skills, the knowledge, and the attitudes for them to actually change. So after I graduated, I worked for a team building consultancy where all we did was play games and activities. I'm sure you've been to some of these corporate things. Yeah. I did that for 2 years. And that was very interesting for me because just using games and activities to teach people about leadership, about how they interact, about how they can get results, that was really exciting for me. And when I then moved here in 2014, I worked for an organization called Alchemy Women in Leadership, where we were doing leadership development for women and girls. So I've spent quite a lot of time in training. But over the years, I noticed that, you know how sometimes we could sit here and have a conversation about, Mwangala, next year we need to start saving, right? We need to save and buy cars. And then we will come out of here and we all go our ways and forget about this conversation. Yeah. But then there's always that friend who, after a year, they've done it. They'll be like, girls, I got a car. And you're like, how did you buy a car? That? Remember we spoke about it? You're like, yeah, we all spoke about it, but you're the one who have the car. So I had a number of friends like that. In my younger years, they were the friends who were always getting the promotions. They were the friends who were saving up and buying cars. They were the friends who would decide, I'm losing weight, and they would go ahead and lose it. So that is when I termed the word goal-getter, right? So for me, the goal-getter is a person who decides to do something and they get it done across the board in whatever any area of their life. So that's when I coined the term goal-getter. And with time, I decided that there has to be a way to equip people to know how to achieve goals, right? So I use diaries. Like I am a stationery junkie, bona fide. I buy diaries, pens, notebooks for no reason at all. I just believe I need them in my life. But as I was using the diaries that are on the market, like the daily organizers, I realized that there was the assumption that people know how to set goals. And I mean, generally we do, right? Like,
I'm listening, I'm here.
It's the new year. We're all going to make the resolutions. I'm going to get better with money. I'm going to get closer to God. I'm going to get healthier. And then by 17 January, it's forgotten. And by 15 September, we're like, 2021, right? So I was like, there has to be a way to help people to create greater clarity around what are you trying to achieve, right? So that's how I sort of started the Goal Getter. I started by creating a product that could help people to create clarity, to make plans, and to consistently follow through. I'll tell you more about that later. But that is how Goal Getter became, and now we have a community called the Goal Getter Tribe. And one of the challenges we run in the Goal Getter Tribe is something called Goal Getters Finish Strong, right? And the idea is, if you haven't done something since January, and now it's December, what makes you think you can afford to say next year, I will start doing this and actually start?
Exactly.
Right. So the idea behind the Goal Getter Finishing Strong is the fact that for the next 25 days, we usually start 6 weeks before. So we say for the last 6 weeks of the year, you become intentional about saying, if I would improve just one area next year, what area would I want to improve on? And then use the remaining 6 weeks not to set major goals and try to achieve what you haven't done in a year, but to build habits and routines and knowledge that is going to empower you to start next year better. So
we're actually like setting the foundation for next year.
Setting the foundation for next year. So it's about getting knowledge, right? Whether it's reading books, whether it's listening to YouTube videos, but get knowledge. Because sometimes we think we don't do things because we are lazy, when in actual fact, we don't know how to do it. There are some things that sound basic, like you must save money. A lot of people don't save money because, to be honest, we just don't know how to do it in a very proper way. So read books that will literally break it down for you. For example, for you to save money, you need to put the savings away before you spend it, and also where are you putting it.
And you have to be disciplined, especially when it comes to saving money.
So the reason that we also do this challenge as a tribe is for the accountability. Accountability breeds discipline. If you are to start saving as a group of people, there's going to be a way where even if you're putting it in an account, you need to show a group that I've done this. For our fitness challenge, they are running, like the fitness challenge is focused more around running. Yeah. So every day you have to log your run. So if you know,
I have done my 5Ks.
You know that there are people who are looking and who are expecting you to run,
you have no choice but to go and run.
You become more accountable. Yeah. So if anybody else wants to do it outside of the Goal Getter Tribe, the question is, find people around you who are trying to improve in the same area, right? Together acquire knowledge and start by doing very small steps.
Baby steps.
So start by doing very small steps. If you're trying to just run for now, you begin to understand it might seem easy to just be like, I'm going to wake up and run every day. But with time, you discover that if you are, say, a family person, you need to start thinking around, what do I do with the kids whilst I'm running, right? There are practicalities that you need to begin thinking around. So starting this side of the year enables you to identify, okay, I'm going to need to set aside so much time. I'm going to need to move things around in my life to make sure that I actually achieve this. So you finish strong by starting to understand, what will it actually take for you to do these things? Find people around you who can hold you accountable, but also share practices with you. That way, by the time you're getting into next year, you now already know what's going to work and what will not work. And obviously set smart goals. Be very clear on what it is that you want to achieve next year. And that way, you are making sure that you've developed the habits, the routines, and the systems to finish strong, but even more importantly, to start next year
strong.
with them.
I like that. If you're joining us now, I am talking to Tafazwa, who is helping us understand how we can end this year strong. Now, I know we have 25 days to go, but how can we end the next 25 days strong? And how do we set the foundation for 2020 on a high note? Don't go away.
To advertise on this program and enjoy amazing introductory rates, please call us on +260 211 290959 or +260 211 290912 or +260 953 538 000. or send us an email at loyolazam@gmail.com.
Welcome back. If you're joining us now, I'm talking to Tafazwa Sasa, who is helping us to understand and know how we can actually plan for 2020. Now, Tafazwa, before we went on break, you were talking about a goal-getter planner.
Yes.
Which is what I'm looking at now. So how does one use this? And is it important to have a planner?
So I will just go into a little more detail around how to use it. But the reason that I think it's important to have a planner is that if you don't have a plan, how are you going to get anything done, right? So going back to the conversation that I said and explaining why you need a planner, it's just, number one, to help you be clear on what exactly are you trying to achieve, right? And then actually making a plan of what do I need to do to achieve this? What do I need to do when to achieve this? How much of what do I need to do to achieve this? And talking about winning in 2020, literally when you think about it, you can only achieve progress pretty much on a day-to-day basis, right? So the planner then helps you figure out how are you going to actually go into it and go about it. So let me kind of walk you through the Goal Getters workbook. Right. So the workbook has quite a number of functions that are in it. And the first thing that I share is what we call the Goal Getters 7 winning ways to getting things done. I mean, they do say there's no formula for success, but I do think there's a formula for consistent execution. There are small things that you can do on a regular basis, right? So it takes you through 7 of those. And my particular favorite is thriving on ridiculously big ideas. Going back to what I mentioned before the break to say, when you want to succeed in your life, you have to tackle the things that initially sound ridiculous.
So things that scare you.
Yes.
You have to face them.
Yes. Yeah. So the workbook will help you understand how do you pursue those ideas, especially those ridiculous ones, the ones that look like you can't achieve it because of who you are or where you come from.
Like getting a job from the bank, for
Absolutely,
example.
when you're just a small girl from a little town, right? Then we get into choosing your top 8 areas. And to me, choosing your top 8 areas is important because balance in ensuring that you are winning in all areas of your life. But also because many times when people set goals, they focus on 2 or 3 areas. And you might do well in hitting those areas in 2020. But do you understand that there's something that is suffering when you're doing it? Let me give you an example.
So you have to strike a balance.
Let me give you an example. You might think that your simple goal next year is to get an MBA, to start your master's, right? So you could set that I want to get a master's, I want to start studying for my master's next year. The goal is to start in September. Great. The thing is, it ripples into other areas of your life. Number one, if you're trying to pursue an academic goal of getting a master's, it means you need to set a financial goal to afford
you have to pay for the fees.
Right? So already we are in 2 areas, right? Number 3, if you are going to do a master's and you're going to be spending 2 to 3 hours every evening sitting in class, it means that if you used to work overtime or work late to balance your work, you have to adjust how you work to ensure that you fit everything between 8 and 5 and still be able to go to class.
So family time
now
is
we are in
eaten.
3 areas.
Yeah.
Yes, but if you're spending your evenings in class, your family time is suffering, which means you now need to also become intentional about setting goals for your family time. But if you're going to spend a lot of time with your family, it means your friends are probably seeing you less.
Yeah.
Your church might suffer. So the workbook helps you identify the 8 key areas that are important for your life at this point in your life, right? And then you do an assessment. Because many times we never sit. When was the last time you sat and somebody asks you, Mwangala, how are you doing with your finances?
That's a very difficult question. Most of us dodge that
In our culture, we don't even talk about it. But do we even talk? We don't even talk about how well we're doing with our health and fitness unless we're at the doctor, right? Or even how well your career is advancing. Some people only talk about their careers because your boss is going to have a performance evaluation conversation with you. So taking responsibility of your life means you do an assessment in the 8 areas that you have chosen and rate yourself to say how well satisfied am I with these areas, right? So you choose your top 8, you do a self-assessment, then you now go into setting SMART goals. So what are SMART goals? Don't set goals that are generic, that are vague, because it's hard for you to trace them. So you can set SMART goals, which means you set goals that are specific, that are measurable, that are achievable, relevant, and time-bound. So being closer to God becomes reading one chapter of my Bible every morning at 6 a.m.
And that becomes a goal.
Yes.
You have
That
to do
becomes
that
a goal,
every
and it
day.
becomes more achievable, right? Being better with money could mean that, oh, I want to save to buy a car. That's also good. But a SMART goal would be, I'm going to save 7,500 kwacha of my salary every month towards buying the car that I want. So the workbook will help you to move from generic goals to setting SMART goals, and you keep refining and fine-tuning your goals to ensure that you're actually sure of what it is that you want to achieve. The third thing that the planner will help you do is to now create a plan. So if you are trying to read more chapters of the Bible, or to save money, or to lose a certain amount of weight, or to start your master's, whatever the case might be, how do you actually go about it? And using the goal-getter system, we say you must consider 3 Ps. There is a process, there is a price, and there are people. The process says, what are the steps I need to follow to achieve this goal? You want to start your master's in September? Great. What are the steps? You need to find out what school, decide which school you're going to, decide which program you're going to, raise the funds, know how much the fees is, do the application process, get admitted. If you're trying to apply for a scholarship, apply for the scholarship. The process is about what are the steps that are involved in this. Even for simpler things like reading more of the Bible or reading more personal development books, the process might be picking the book that you're going to read, deciding a time when you're going to read, deciding where you are going to read. Because reading the Bible in your blanket, you know, is a sure formula to doze off and sleep. So if you're trying to be intentional about it, it's also deciding, I'm better off reading the Bible from the lounge.
From the lounge, yeah.
Right? So that's the process. The price is, how much will this cost me? Sometimes we think that there are goals that will not cost us anything. That is not true. Because at the moment, you are using that time or that money for something else. So the price is about, how much will this cost me? Either in time, in money, or even in energy. You might not be able to go to the gym in the morning, but if you try to go to the gym in the evening, you're already tired.
Sure.
So it's not feasible. And the last element is the people. Who is going to support you? But more importantly, who will hold you back from pursuing this goal? Because there are people who are benefiting from where you currently are. There are people who feel better because you're not doing well.
So how do you do that? I mean, usually it's people that are close to us that just, for lack of a better word, they pull you down. You know, you keep wanting to go up ahead, they keep pulling you down. So how do you work around that?
So you become intentional, right? And if it's people who are immediately affected by what it is that you do, if we go back to the example of getting your master's, we have already seen what's affected, right? So number one is sort of having conversations to get the buy-in of certain people. You need to speak to your supervisor. I'm going to start a master's. It's going to take so much time. And begin to have that negotiation. What do I need to do to ensure that I can still go to do school but balance my work? If it's with your family, having that conversation with your family. I recently started my MBA, and I needed to have a conversation with my family around every evening now. I'm not available as much as I used to be. 3 hours of every evening of my life, I'm unavailable. I'm locked up in a room and I'm studying, right? But having that conversation, and for me it was the buy-in of, initially in my head, I wanted to do my studies from my office, right? So after 5, I thought I would stay at the office, then come home at once. But in our conversations, in our negotiations, my husband indicated that he would rather that I split up those 3 hours so that I come home early, I spend time with my son, we play around. I do the first half, which is my webinars, because my program is online. So I do a webinar for 1 hour, 30 minutes, and then I break it off, spend more time with the family, and once everybody else goes to bed, I finish off, right? So it's a bit of negotiation.
And how is that working for you?
It's working quite well, I think. I mean, there are challenges, like if I'm in the house, my son doesn't understand why I'm not talking to him, right? But that's the price to be paid. In my head, I was like, 5 to 8 p.m., I stay in the office, I study, I finish, I go home. But I have other people in my life who I really care about. So we negotiate and you find a balance, right? If you are an employee, for example, some people, your boss might require you to work overtime at another time. So it's also about getting people to understand the benefit. Why is this important to us? And what are the negotiations that we have to make? For people who are optional, I would say navigate away from them, right? So finding ways to surround yourself with people. So for example,
going to support you.
If we're talking about school, for example, it might mean that you're going to get closer to the people who you are in class with, because those are the people who are doing assignments with and all of these things. You can't carry everybody.
And that's a very tough decision to make.
You can't, but you just can't. You can't carry everybody. As you are changing, that's the thing. As you are changing, there are people who will remain behind, but don't worry. You always make new friends where you're going, because there are also people who are trying to do that.
That's part of growth.
It's part of growth. And the last thing that I wanted to touch on that the workbook does for you is that it has a weekly worksheet, right? On a weekly basis.
So you're tracking your goals on a weekly basis.
In the Go-Getter Tribe, we plan on a weekly basis. You set your annual goals, you set your quarterly goals, you set your monthly goals, you set your weekly goals.
Are there any daily goals?
Yeah.
Small little baby
There are.
steps?
So here there's what we call the habit tracker, right? So there are some things that you need to do on a daily basis. So for me, for example, the things that are now on my habit tracker is 3 hours of study every day. Every single day. It happens at different times of the day, but that's something that is now important for me if I'm to finish my program and pass well. If you're trying to have, say, a financial goal, your daily habits might be tracking where your money is going on a daily basis. How much money did you spend on what?
That's a tough one,
It
Tufano.
is, but that's the thing, Mwangala. If it wasn't tough, we would do it. If it wasn't tough, we would do it. And that's why you need tools and people around you to ensure that you're taking the small steps on a very consistent basis.
Sure.
So if you do anything that's going to make 2020 different for you, it's understand that it's going to be a process. There are things that you will need to do on a very regular basis. Understand there is a price to be paid. There are things that you will not be able to do. And be intentional about the people who you surround yourself with.
Now, I know that most people plan. I know a lot of us plan. Beginning of the year, we plan. But like you said, 10 days along the line, you've given up. So what do you do for you to remain consistent? Say if I can start my plan today, 3-4 days later, I just decide to stop.
So the first thing is what I said earlier on, accountability breeds discipline. Find people around you who are trying to do the same thing. For me, I think that is the best thing. That is the thing that has absolutely helped me in my personal life, right? So remembering that when I was giving you all these examples, if you go back even to my story of how I got my first job, it was because somebody came to my school and they spoke about this thing. But along the way, my friend's mother told me to apply to university, right? My supervisor told me to go and speak to the director. The people around you are important because they are the people. My friend's mom could have just not even discouraged me from applying. She could have just kept quiet. Who are you surrounding yourself with?
That's a big question. It's a question we must ask ourselves every day.
You don't want people who will discourage you from growth, but you also don't want people who will do nothing about your growth. You want to be surrounded by people who are invested in your growth, people who are always pushing you. I have a lot of people in my life who push me for things like I like them, but the level of pushing me that they do
sometimes becomes too much for you.
I was telling you I started school this year. At some point I was just like, initially I wanted to go and do my master's abroad, right? But then I looked at where I am in my life right now. I have a family, I'm running a business. It doesn't make sense for me to go away for a full year. But one of my mentors said, well, just find a program that you can do with more flexibility. And I was like, well, I might not find funding for that. And she was like, no, there are a lot of programs that allow you to do that. I was speaking to an accountability partner of mine, and they were like, well, why don't you apply to the African Leadership University? Again, ridiculous idea. I was like, have you seen the people who go to ALU?
Yeah.
And he was like, you will get into ALU.
And you're one of those people.
And I needed a lot of people to encourage and remind me until I got to a place where I was like, okay, I'm going to do this. And I finally did it. But the people around you
are key.
If you mind one thing in 2020, check your tribe. check the people around you.
That's powerful.
They will decide whether you further go down, stay in the same place, or go higher. And we're trying to go higher.
Tufano, if you were on your deathbed and you were given a second chance to live, what would you do differently?
That's an interesting one. I think the one thing that I'm already learning is to be kinder to myself. I would definitely be kinder to myself. I tend to be very critical of myself. I push myself a lot. I hold things against myself. But it's all right. You are learning, like you're a work in progress. Be kind to yourself. You are learning and you're growing. And one of the things that I've learned is I've started being kinder to myself, is I'm becoming kinder to other people.
True.
So I think just that understanding that we are all on a journey and we are growing, and even when we make mistakes, it's all right because we are learning. When you learn to do that for yourself, you're even more patient with other people, because even when people upset you or wrong you or disappoint you, you understand that they're also on a journey. So I think I would have, if I had to do it again, I would write that down somewhere where I could see it every single day and remember to always, always, always be kinder to myself, which would definitely spill over to other people.
Okay, so there you have it. 2020, if there's anything that you should do differently, is make sure you're intentional with the people that you are surrounded by. Make sure that you belong to a tribe, and success will be on your way. Remember to make every day count. This has been Mwangala Chakalashi Santos. Join us for another exciting episode on Ignite.